Greetings everybody, my name is Tommy the Keyblade Master and welcome again to another one of my reviews. Now I did a review on Assassin's Creed Unity a few months ago and I kinda hated it. I ended up doing two videos on what went wrong with that game. The storyline was boring. It centered around the French Revolution, which you think would have several aspects of a secret assassin organization going through and killing some of the revolutionaries. Unfortunately, it skipped some of the biggest aspects of the war, like the Reign of Terror, for example, and the characters were just dull. So when I heard Syndicate was being released, I was not very enthused. But then I've heard that this was the best Assassin's Creed since Assassin's Creed 2, so I decided to give it a try when it was on sale for Black Friday. After playing through this game, is it the best Assassin's Creed since Assassin's Creed 2? Well, it depends on whether or not you consider Assassin's Creed 4 a real Assassin's Creed game, because that's more of a pirate naval battle game and an extremely fun one with not much Assassin's Creed in it, and usually the Assassin's Creed part is actually the weakest part of that game. But I do consider this one in between 2 and 4, and it's a lot of fun to play. Let's get around to looking at why this game is better than Assassin's Creed Unity and a lot of the other games that have come before it. Now, when I did Assassin's Creed Unity, I separated it into two videos because Assassin's Creed Unity's story ticked me off so much that I wanted to do a separate rant on it. I'm not going to do that here because there's not much of a story here for me to really rant about. Don't get me wrong, there's plenty of cutscenes and it does tell a fully established story, but I don't have anything to say I'm really ticked about or really overjoyed with. And for the most part, that's a good thing because the story kind of just tends to stay out of the way. Alright, the game's plot follows two fraternal twins, Jacob and Evie Fry. These are two twins that were raised by assassins, so these are what their childhood was like cutscenes. There's no, here's how they discovered the whole conspiracy. These people have been in it since the beginning, and at any rate, after you complete a tutorial mission with them, which is very brief and very to the point, the two decide to go to London after hearing that it's been overrun by Templars and the only assassin there needs help in dealing with the situation, so the two take off towards London against the wishes of their advisor. And the great thing about this game's plot is, like I said, there's no love story, there's no childhood trauma, it's just these two people going out on the town in London assassin style. Jacob wants to take over the gangs of London and get rid of the Templar-controlled blighters by forming his own gang, the Rooks. Meanwhile, Evie's more interested in trying to find the piece of Eden that she believes is in the city, trying to find that alien artifact, so treasure hunting and stealth will be kind of her missions and her style. In the end, it's just a really enjoyable story. It doesn't get bogged down in itself. It doesn't get bogged down in conspiracy. It doesn't try to make you care about the characters too much other than the fact that they are there, and it's perfect for this type of game. In fact, the game goes so far as not to even mention what the creed is or what it actually means. So a lot of the series cliches have been thrown out, and for the better. And to make matters even more interesting, there is an optional plot that happens in World War I that you can access through a secret area that you can find in the world map, and Juno Hu appears to taunt the player, meaning that this game actually moves the modern day segments forward. As far as these go, they're very brief cutscenes. They never really take you out of the game too much or too often. And basically, it does explain a few things that happened in the modern day segments in Unity. You kind of get a little bit more of an understanding why the assassins were contacting gamers to help them with their mission. It seems like the group you're with aren't actually assassins, but hackers that the assassins have hired to collect intel. The real assassins are going out on the missions based on the intel that the gamers are collecting. I guess it kind of just ties into Watch Dogs, which is a game I haven't played yet, but still, it's a little bit better at explaining this kind of odd modern day story sequence, and you do catch up with a few old friends from Assassin's Creed 2 and 3, and overall, I kind of enjoyed the modern day segments as well. The story is kind of short, sweet, and simple, and the game is better off for it. If I were to describe the graphics, I would say they're beautiful. Assassin's Creed Syndicate shows off a very romanticized Victorian London, but it does so very well. I say romanticized because when you look down at the streets, you see a bunch of people, you see a bunch of horses and carriages, and it looks so romantic that, well, this was before indoor plumbing, sewer systems were kind of a new thing, so you actually had a whole bunch of crap literally on the streets that we don't see here, so it doesn't get that historically accurate, fortunately. It does mention in one of the database logs, though, that they did have diseases because of the filth, but you don't really see the filth in the graphics. You just get this really beautiful looking Victorian London setting that you'd see in the movies, and they do it really good. When you zip a line along the city, or if you're just climbing, just the amount of detail that goes into the graphics are beautiful. And when I take a look at the character models and the way they're presented, they're really good as well. Now, that's not to say there aren't a few graphical bugs. Occasionally, you will run into a cutscene that has an invisible character, and I don't mean just one. There were a good handful of cutscenes that had a character that was just completely invisible during the cutscene. Take this one, for example. You see those flying books over there? There's supposed to be a character there holding them, but instead that character is completely missing in the cutscene. And this isn't the only cutscene in which this happens. It happens in several others, and it's distracting. But still, when you consider the nature of the bugs in this game compared to, say, Unity, which was still buggy after being patched, I'll take some of these small ones over it. If there's trouble in your London borough and it don't look good, who you gonna call?
Assassin Phantom Busters.
Remember not to cross the hidden blades. The sound and music in Assassin's Creed Syndicate is more atmospheric, like in other Assassin's Creed games. You're going to be hearing more of the conversation from people and more of the sights and sounds of the city that you're going to be running through, rather than music blasting at you constantly, and it fits this game. And the voice acting is also pretty nice too.
So it's possible. But if he did, he kept it a closely guarded...
What can I say? I absolutely love this game and the way that it plays. Its Victorian setting makes it that it's not modern, but at the same time it's not too ancient. You're not going to be battling with swords, but with brass knuckles, and while there's no cars to steal, you'll be stealing horses and buggies to get yourself through the game. And the best part about it is that the game takes no time in starting up. There's no, you're a kid scene, here's where you stumble upon this whole hidden war that's been going on for 1,000 years. No, it starts you off right away with 2 tutorial missions, and then you're in London in less than an hour. I just love the fact that this game does not take any time away from getting to the main point. And I hope the next Assassin's Creed takes notes and gets rid of some of these cliches. Anyways, since you're not fighting with swords strictly anymore, but more fists or with small knives, the game kind of has a Batman feel to it in the way the combat is presented, which is kind of fine. It's really fun combat. The smoke bombs are still there if you want to use them, and they're still a little OP. But I didn't find myself having to use them as much, nor were they quite as useful as in Unity, making learning the combat system and using the combat a lot more fun and valuable. Overall, I enjoyed the fighting in this game, and since they give you 2 characters, one of them which was more built for the combat and one that's more built for stealth, when you go into a fight with the right character, it's a lot of fun. Not that fighting with Evie is any harder than it is with Jacob, but, you know, pounding people into the ground using Jacob, who's an absolute brute, is kind of fun. But the game also borrows from Batman in another way. We also now have a grappling shot that you get early on in the game, and this is absolutely fun and one of the best parts about this game, and it's going to be really hard if they can't fit this into the next Assassin's Creed game. But basically with this hook shot, you're able to scale pretty much even the tallest buildings within 1 or 2 grapples, and it's really fun. You can also traverse long distances and even get a drop on some of these criminals from overhead using it. And although I've already mentioned this before, I like the fact that they split the action into two assassins. Again, when you go into your stealth missions, you have Evie, who's lighter on her feet, makes less noise, and as you power up, can gain moves like going invisible. And then you also have Jacob for your missions where you're going to be doing a lot of fighting. He has more brutal takedown moves and can finish off enemies easier than Evie and can take more damage. I like this fact. It makes the missions a lot easier to do, especially the assassination missions that can be brutally hard in Unity aren't so much hard in Syndicate. I did not get frustrated having to go in and take out my target. They also managed to fix a few of the other problems they had within Unity. For example, within Unity, one of the problems I had is just walking around the streets of Paris got me attacked by rival gangs, just because I'm not fighting the cops, but the gangs, so they always snuck up and attacked me. This still happens in Syndicate, but it happens a whole lot less, and there's two things you can do to help stop that from happening if it annoys you. First, you can take over territory by doing things like freeing kids from factories or just taking over a gang territory in a gang war. Or you can even purchase an upgrade later on in the game that leaves these gang members to leave you alone altogether. It's a really great improvement over the last Assassin's Creed. Plus, there's a lot of fun side stories involving having to go with Charles Dickens and his Ghost Club, or having to do some side adventures with Charles Darwin. And there are some side events that, of course, require no narration, because you're doing things just like stealing cargo off buggies and transporting them over to your bases for a little bit of cash. This game could have easily been called Grand Theft Horse and Buggy, because that's what you do on these side missions that appear by random, and they're a lot of fun. And finally, what is my final nitpick when it comes to the story that I mentioned at the beginning of this review? Well, as we all know, the Animus works by supposedly allowing you to relive visions of your ancestors through DNA memory. However, in this game, you're taking two assassins that are brother and sister who would have had separate lineages and playing through them at the same time. So either Abstergo managed to capture a lot of their descendants, or I'm pretty sure that Ubisoft would insist that nothing like that happen. Still, it's kind of an amusing thought. Exactly where did they get this DNA to create the simulation with two people who are brothers and sister? But at the very least, it's still a very enjoyable game. If I have to give Assassin's Creed Syndicate a score, I'd give it a 4 out of 5. It's definitely worth checking out if you're a fan of the Assassin's Creed series. It's way better than Unity. The story in the modern day is finally getting off to somewhere. Hopefully it'll stay on track, because Assassin's Creed Unity was a complete waste of time. This one isn't, but even if it is just another filler because they don't plan on really doing anything with the series, it's at least an enjoyable game where the story doesn't bog you down too much. So definitely check it out. And if you're wondering which I think is better, Assassin's Creed Syndicate or Tales of Zestiria, I would definitely go with Assassin's Creed on this one. It's just an all-around better created game, and I did enjoy Tales of Zestiria, but I'm sorry, Brotherhood of Gaming, Assassin's Creed Syndicate's just a better made game, and a game I found myself enjoying because I didn't have to worry about nitpicking all these different things that just seemed wrong with the game. That's what Assassin's Creed Unity was for, so yeah, I'm going to have to say Assassin's Creed Syndicate is better than Tales of Zestiria. Anyways, thank you for watching my video. Feel free to leave me a message down below in the comments. This is Tommy the Keyblade Master signing out and wishing you a Happy New Year.